Most people don't realize how much of their life is lived for an audience that I send to even watching. They wake up already bracing themselves for judgment. They choose clothes, words, opinions, careers, and even dreams based on how they might look from the outside. Somewhere along the way, without ever consciously agreeing to it, they handed over the steering wheel of their inner world to strangers. And the tragedy is not that people judge because people always will, but that we allow those imagined judgments to dictate how freely we live. Stoicism begins with a brutal but liberating observation. The opinions of others are not your problem, not your responsibility, and not within your control. And once you truly understand that, something inside you loosens. You breathe differently. You stand differently. You move through the world with a quiet authority that no approval can give and no criticism can take away. The fear of what others think feels ancient, almost instinctual, because at one point in human history, it was. Being rejected by the group could mean exile, starvation, or death. Our nervous systems evolved to treat social disapproval as danger. But the modern world no longer works that way. A stranger's raised eyebrow, a coworker's comment, an online opinion, none of these threaten your survival. Yet your body reacts as if they do. Stoicism doesn't ask you to suppress this reaction or pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, it teaches you to see it clearly, to separate what is happening inside you from what is actually happening in reality. The moment you do that, you begin to reclaim your power. Here is the core Stoic trick, and it sounds deceptively simple. Separate what is within your control from what is not. Your thoughts, values, choices, and actions are yours. Other people's opinions, interpretations, moods, and judgments are not. You can influence them sometimes, but you can never own them. And the moment you try to own what is not yours, you create suffering. Most anxiety about being judged comes from trying to manage something fundamentally unmanageable. You replay conversations in your head, imagine future reactions, rehearse defenses, soften your personality, shrink your honesty, all in an attempt to control how you are perceived. Stoicism cuts through all of that and asks one uncomfortable question. Why are you giving so much energy to something you will never fully control? The Stoics understood something most people resist accepting. No matter what you do, someone will misunderstand you. Someone will dislike you. Someone will reduce you to a version of yourself that fits their own fears, insecurities, or limited perspective. You could be kind and be seen as weak. You could be confident and be seen as arrogant. You could be quiet and be seen as cold. You could be expressive and be seen as attention-seeking. There is no configuration of behavior that guarantees universal approval. Once you internalize this, the endless performance loses its logic. If the outcome is out of your control anyway, why keep exhausting yourself trying to perfect it? A powerful Stoic exercise is to imagine standing in a room full of people, all looking at you, all forming opinions. Then imagine zooming out in time. In a year, how many of their thoughts will matter? In 5 years? In 50? Eventually, both you and they will be gone, and the judgments that feel so heavy right now will dissolve into nothing. This is not meant to be morbid. It is meant to be freeing. When you realize how temporary and fragile opinions are, you stop treating them like eternal verdicts. You stop acting as if a moment of disapproval is a permanent stain on your identity. What really traps people is not other people's thoughts, but their own attachment to them. The Stoics notice that it is never the external event that disturbs us, but the judgment we attach to it. Someone thinks you are strange. That is a fact. But the suffering begins when you add, and that means there is something wrong with me. Or that means I will be rejected. Or that means I must change who I am. Those additions are not facts. They are interpretations. And interpretations are choices, even when they feel automatic. Stoicism trains you to pause at that exact moment, to catch the interpretation before it hardens into belief, and to ask yourself whether it actually deserves your emotional energy. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your values clearly. When you don't know what you stand for, you borrow standards from the crowd. You let popularity decide what is right, impressive, or acceptable. But when you define your own principles, how you want to treat people, what kind of effort you respect in yourself, what kind of life feels meaningful, You no longer need constant external validation. Other people's opinions become data, not commands. You can listen without obeying. You can consider without surrendering. The Stoics were not indifferent to feedback. They were indifferent to unnecessary suffering. They believed that criticism should be evaluated like a tool. If it helps you become more virtuous or more skillful, use it. If it doesn't, discard it without resentment. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Stoicism is this idea of not caring. It doesn't mean being cold, detached, or dismissive. It means caring selectively and rationally. Caring deeply about your character, your actions, your integrity. Caring far less about applause or disapproval that has nothing to do with those things. The Stoic trick is not emotional numbness. It is emotional discipline. You learn where your emotions are useful and where they are simply draining you. Stop leaking energy into places that offer no return. Think about how often you censor yourself before you even speak. Any thoughts never leave your mouth because you prejudge how they might be received. How many opportunities you avoid because you imagine embarrassment, rejection, or failure. This is not humility. This is fear wearing a respectable mask. Stoicism invites you to act according to reason and virtue, not fear of embarrassment. It asks you to measure your actions by whether they are aligned with your values, not whether they will be applauded. Once you shift that metric, courage becomes easier, not effortless, but simpler. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "Is this the right thing for me to do?" Another Stoic practice is negative visualization, and it applies directly to fear of judgment. Imagine the worst reasonable outcome. Someone laughs, someone disapproves, someone misunderstands you. Sit with that image and notice something important. You survive it. Your life continues. The world does not collapse. Often the imagined pain is far worse than the real thing. By facing it deliberately, you strip it of its power. Fear thrives on vagueness and avoidance. Clarity weakens it. The Stoics trained themselves to look directly at discomfort so it would stop looming larger than it deserved. There is also a deeper layer to this fear that Stoicism exposes. When you obsess over what others think, you are often trying to outsource your self-worth. You are saying, "Tell me who I am. Tell me if I'm enough." That is an unstable foundation. Other people's standards shift, their moods change, your judgments contradict each other. Building your identity on that is like building a house on moving sand. Stoicism encourages you to anchor your self-respect internally. You become your own witness. You ask yourself whether you acted with honesty, courage, fairness, and self-control. If you did, you rest easy. If you didn't, you correct yourself not out of shame, but out of commitment to growth. As you begin to practice this, something subtle but powerful happens. People sense it. When you stop chasing approval, you paradoxically become more grounded and attractive. Not because you are trying to impress, but because you are no longer performing. There is a steadiness to someone who is not internally negotiating every move with an imaginary jury. This doesn't mean everyone will like you. In fact, some won't. But Stoicism teaches you to accept that as the cost of being real. And that cost is far lower than the cost of living a life filtered through fear. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we will go deeper into how Stoics train their minds daily to detach from judgment, how to handle criticism without defensiveness, and how to build an identity that cannot be shaken by opinion. But for now, sit with this idea. Freedom does not come from controlling how others see you. It comes from no longer needing to. Stoics were intensely practical people. They weren't interested in philosophy as decoration or intellectual entertainment. For them, philosophy was a survival tool, a way to remain stable in a world that constantly tries to pull you off balance. And one of the first things they trained themselves to expect was criticism. Not because they were pessimists, but because they understood human nature. People judge reflexively. They project their own fears, frustrations, and unexamined beliefs onto others. When you stop seeing judgment as something personal and start seeing it as something inevitable, it loses much of its sting. One of the most effective Stoic mental shifts is this. When someone judges you, they are not reacting to you as you truly are, but to their perception of you. And that perception is filtered through their experiences, biases, wounds, and expectations. In other words, their opinion says far more about them than it does about you. This doesn't mean their feedback is always useless or wrong. It means it is never pure truth. It is an interpretation. Once you understand this, you stop treating opinions as verdicts and start treating them as signals that may or may not be relevant. A Stoic does not automatically reject criticism, but they also do not automatically accept it. They pause. They examine it calmly. They ask, is there something here I can learn? If the answer is yes, they take responsibility without self-loathing. If the answer is no, they let it go without resentment. Most people do the opposite. Either defend themselves aggressively, as if their identity is under attack, or they internalize criticism completely, allowing it to erode their confidence. Stoicism offers a third option: evaluation without emotional chaos. There's a reason criticism feels so threatening. When someone judges you, it can feel like a threat to your belonging, your competence, or your worth. But Stoicism reminds you that your worth is not up for negotiation. It is not a popularity contest. Your value comes from your capacity to act with reason and integrity, not from how well you conform to other people's preferences. The moment you truly believe this, criticism loses its ability to define you. It may still sting, but it no longer controls you. Another powerful Stoic insight is recognizing how little time people actually spend thinking about you. Most people are absorbed in their own concerns, insecurities, and internal narratives. Even when they judge you, it is often brief and shallow. They move on quickly. Meanwhile, you replayed the moment for hours, days, or even years. Stoicism teaches you to notice this imbalance. You are carrying the weight of a judgment long after the person who made it has forgotten. Why continue paying interest on a debt that no one is collecting? The Stoics practiced mental distancing. When you feel the surge of anxiety about what someone thinks, imagine stepping back and observing the thought instead of merging with it. You notice there is the fear of judgment. Not, this fear is me. That small shift creates space. In that space, you regain choice, can decide how much attention this thought deserves. Often simply labeling it reduces its intensity. You stop being trapped inside the fear and start looking at it from the outside. There is also an important distinction Stoicism makes between reputation and character. Reputation is what people think of you. Character is who you actually are. Reputation is unstable, outside your control, and easily distorted. Character is built slowly through consistent actions. The Stoics argued that only character deserves your concern. If you protect your character, reputation will do whatever it doesn't. That is fine. When you prioritize reputation, you often compromise character, because you start doing what looks good instead of what is right. Stoicism asks you to reverse that equation. Many people believe that caring about what others think keeps them socially safe. In reality, it often keeps them psychologically trapped. When you are constantly monitoring yourself through imagined eyes, you are never fully present. You're split in two, the one acting and the one watching. This self-surveillance drains energy and dulls authenticity. Stoicism encourages unity. You act as one person, guided by reason, not by the shifting reactions of others. Consider how often you adjust your behavior depending on who is watching. How your voice changes, your humor softens, your opinions blur. This is not adaptability. What is fragmentation? Over time, it creates confusion about who you really are. Stoicism restores clarity by giving you a stable internal compass. You act consistently across situations because your reference point is internal, not social. That consistency is deeply grounding. There is also freedom in accepting that not everyone is meant to understand you. The Stoics did not seek to be universally admired. They sought to live well. Understanding is a gift, not a requirement. When you stop demanding that others get you, you stop contorting yourself to be digestible. You allow yourself to be complex, imperfect, and evolving. Those who resonate will stay. Those who don't were never meant to be your judges anyway.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we re-diving into a philosophy that's thousands of years old but feels more relevant than ever. We're talking about Stoicism. Now when you hear that word, you might picture someone who's completely emotionless, a stone-faced statue. That's a common misconception. Stoicism isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about understanding them, managing them, and ultimately not letting them control you. It's about building a kind of mental fortress, an inner citadel that remains strong and steady, no matter what storms are raging outside. Think about it. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with things we can't control. The economy, other people's opinions, unexpected traffic jams, a sudden downpour on the day you planned a picnic. The list is endless. we get frustrated, anxious, and stressed out trying to manage all these external factors. This is where the first key principle of Stoicism comes in, the dichotomy of control. The ancient Stoics, like Epictetus, taught that we must learn to distinguish between what is within our power and what is not. What's in our power? Our thoughts, our judgments, our choices, our actions. What's not in our power? Pretty much everything else. Your health, your reputation, what other people think of you, the outcome of your efforts. Now, this might sound a bit pessimistic at first, but it's actually incredibly liberating. Imagine how much mental energy you would free up if you stopped worrying about things you have absolutely no control over. The Stoic approach isn't to give up and become passive. It's to focus your energy like a laser beam on the things you can influence, your own character and your own responses. When you get cut off in traffic, you can't control the other driver, but you can control your reaction. You can choose not to get angry, not to let it ruin your day. That choice, that internal power, is everything. This leads us directly to the idea of emotional resilience. Life is going to throw curveballs at you. You'll face setbacks, failures, and disappointments. That's a given. Resilience is not about avoiding these things. It's about how quickly you get back up. The Stoics saw obstacles not as roadblocks, but as opportunities. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoics, wrote in his personal journal, which we now know as Meditations, that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What does that mean? It means that every challenge is a chance to practice virtue. If someone is rude to you, it's a chance to practice patience. If a project fails, it's a chance to practice perseverance and learn from your mistakes. Instead of seeing a problem and saying, "Oh no, this is terrible," the Stoic perspective is to say, "Okay, here's a challenge. How can I use this to become a better person? What can I learn from this?" This mental reframing is incredibly powerful. It transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active agent in your own life, finding strength and growth in the very things that were meant to hold you back. This brings me to a huge source of anxiety for so many of us, the fear of what other people think. We spend so much time and energy curating our lives for an imaginary audience, terrified of being judged or criticized. We're afraid to pursue a passion because people might think it's silly. We're afraid to speak our minds because we might be disliked. The Stoics had a straightforward solution for this. Remember that other people's opinions are external to you. They are not within your control. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, pointed out how absurd it is to value the opinions of others, people we often wouldn't even respect, over our own self-worth. Your value doesn't come from external validation, likes on social media, or praise from your boss. It comes from your character, from living in accordance with your own principles. When you truly internalize this, the fear of judgment starts to lose its power over you. You stop living for the approval of others and start living authentically for yourself. This isn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It's about building a solid sense of self-worth that is undependent on the shifting sands of public opinion. You become your own source of authority. So how can we start applying these ideas in our daily lives? It's all about practice. Stoicism is not just an intellectual exercise. It's a practical philosophy for living. One great exercise is called negative visualization. This involves taking a few moments each day to imagine losing the things you value, most your job, your home, even your loved ones. Now, this sounds morbid, but the purpose is not to dwell on negativity. The purpose is twofold. First, it prepares you for potential loss, making you more resilient if it ever happens. Second, and more importantly, it makes you incredibly grateful for what you have right now. When you take a moment to imagine life without your morning coffee, or without a friend you can call, you start to appreciate those things on a much deeper level. You stop taking them for granted. Another practical tool is journaling. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations was essentially his private journal. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to reflect. What went well? Where did I get upset? Did I act in line with my values? What could I do better tomorrow? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about self-awareness and continuous improvement. It's about checking in with yourself and making sure you are consciously steering your own ship rather than being tossed around by the waves of emotion and external events. Think of it like training a muscle. Building emotional resilience and internal authority doesn't happen overnight. It takes consistent effort. You'll still get angry. You'll still feel anxious sometimes. You're human. The goal isn't perfection. It's progress. The goal is to gradually build that inner citadel, brick by brick, thought by thought, action by action. Every time you choose a calm response over an angry one, every time you focus on what you can control instead of what you can't, you are adding another layer of strength to your fortress. Ultimately, Stoicism offers a path to what the ancient Greeks called eudaimonia, a state of human flourishing, of living a good, meaningful life. It's not about being rich or famous or having an easy life. It's about cultivating inner peace, wisdom, and strength of character, regardless of your external circumstances. It's about understanding that true happiness and freedom come from within. By focusing on our own thoughts and actions, by seeing challenges as opportunities, and by freeing ourselves from the fear of judgment, we can build a life of profound resilience and purpose. We can learn to navigate the chaos of the world with a sense of calm and unshakable confidence. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore these powerful ideas. I hope this has given you some food for thought and perhaps some practical tools to try in your own life. If you found this helpful, please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more content on philosophy for modern living. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What's one Stoic idea that resonates with you the most? Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
As you become less reactive to judgment, your emotional range actually expands. You feel more, not less, but you are no longer ruled by those feelings. You can feel embarrassment without spiraling, disapproval without collapse, praise without addiction. This emotional regulation is one of Stoicism's greatest gifts. It allows you to experience life fully without being dragged by every external stimulus. There is also a moral clarity that emerges. When you stop acting for approval, your actions become cleaner. You help because it is right, not because it will be noticed. You speak because it is necessary, not because it will be applauded. You walk away because staying would compromise you, not because others agree with your decision. This alignment creates self-respect, which is far more stable than self-esteem. Many people fear that if they stop caring what others think, they will become isolated. Stoicism teaches the opposite. When you stop performing, your relationships become more honest. Some connections fade, yes. But those that remain are rooted in authenticity rather than mutual pretense. You are seen more clearly by fewer people. That is not a loss. That is refinement. This stage of the journey can feel lonely at times. You are no longer fully participating in the social theater. You see the patterns? You notice how often people posture, compare, seek validation. Stoicism helps you resist the urge to feel superior or bitter. You remember that you were once there too. Compassion replaces contempt. You stay human without being trapped. In the next part, we will confront one of the hardest challenges: what to do when judgment turns into rejection, exclusion, or loss. How Stoicism teaches resilience when approval is withdrawn, and how to remain whole even when standing alone. There comes a moment when indifference to opinion is no longer theoretical. It becomes real when you feel the weight of rejection, not imagined judgment, but actual loss. A door closes. A group distances itself. Someone withdraws approval that once felt secure. This is where most people abandon their principles and retreat back into performance. Stoicism, however, was forged precisely for moments like this. It does not promise comfort. It promises stability. The Stoics understood that social loss can hurt deeply. Humans are relational by nature. To pretend otherwise is dishonest. But they also understood that pain does not have to become destruction. Rejection does not define you unless you let it redefine your values. When approval is withdrawn, the Stoic response is not bitterness or self-erasure. It is clarity. You ask yourself whether what you lost required you to betray your character in order to keep it. If the answer is yes, then the loss is not a tragedy. It is a correction. Standing alone is often romanticized, but in reality, it is uncomfortable. Silence replaces validation. Doubt creeps in. Stoicism does not deny this discomfort. Instead, it reframes it. Solitude becomes a testing ground. When no one is clapping, who are you? When no one is watching, how do you act? This is where your internal standards either hold or collapse. And if they collapse, Stoicism does not shame you. It invites you to rebuild them more consciously. There is a subtle but important Stoic insight here. Not all rejection is failure. Sometimes it is alignment. When you stop shaping yourself to fit expectations, you naturally stop fitting into certain environments. That friction is information. It tells you where you were compromising without realizing it. The Stoic does not chase what no longer fits. They let it go with restraint, not resentment. Another crucial lesson emerges at this stage. Resilience is not loud, does not announce how strong you are. It looks ordinary. You keep showing up. You keep acting well. Keep your commitments to yourself. You allow disappointment without dramatizing it. Its quiet persistence is deeply Stoic. It is strength that does not need witnesses. Stoics also warned against over-identifying with roles: employee, friend, partner, outsider, rebel. None of these fully define you. When rejection occurs, it often attacks a role, not your essence. But when you fuse your identity with the role, the loss feels existential. Stoicism encourages flexibility. Play roles without becoming them. Can step out of one without losing yourself. At this point, many people face a temptation to harden, to become emotionally closed as a defense against judgment and loss. Stoicism rejects this. Emotional numbness is not strength. It is avoidance. The Stoic remains open while regulated. They allow themselves to feel disappointment without letting it dictate their behavior. This balance is difficult, but it is where maturity lives. There is also a powerful inversion that happens. When you no longer fear rejection, you become harder to control. You stop agreeing out of anxiety. You stop over-explaining. You stop negotiating your worth. This does not make you unkind, it makes you clear. And clarity often looks like confidence to those who lack it. One of the deepest Stoic realizations is that approval feels good, but it is not nourishment. It cannot sustain you. Only self-respect can do that. And self-respect is earned privately, through actions no one applauds. Through restraint when you could lash out. Through honesty when silence would be safer. Through patience when quitting would be easier. Have you ever felt like you're on a roller coaster of emotions, constantly tossed around by life's ups and downs? One day you're soaring, the next you're plunging. What if I told you there's a way to get off that ride, to find a stable, unshakable peace within yourself, no matter what's happening on the outside? This isn't about becoming a robot or suppressing your feelings. It's about transforming them. It's the path of the modern Stoic, and it's a journey that can completely change the way you experience life. It all starts with a simple, yet profound realization. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. This is the cornerstone of Stoicism, the famous dichotomy of control. At first, this is just an intellectual idea. You read it, you nod, you think, that makes sense? You might even try to apply it. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you tell yourself, I can't control their driving, but I can control my anger. Maybe it works for a moment, but the frustration still bubbles up. This is the first stage, intellectual understanding. It's like having a map, but not yet having taken the first step on the trail. The real transformation begins when you move from knowing to doing. This is where you start actively practicing Stoic exercises. You might start a journal. It's practicing what's called the view from above, where you imagine yourself floating above your city, your country, the world, seeing your problems shrink in the vastness of the cosmos. Or maybe you practice negative visualization, consciously thinking about what could go wrong, not to be pessimistic, but to appreciate what you have right now and to prepare yourself mentally for adversity. You start deliberately choosing your response in small, everyday moments. The barista gets your order wrong. Instead of annoyance, you choose patience. Your Wi-Fi cuts out during an important call. Instead of panic, you choose to calmly find a solution. Each of these small choices is like a single rep in the gym for your mind. You're building your inner strength, one moment at a time. This is the second stage, conscious practice. It feels like work because it is. You're actively rewiring years of habitual reactions. Then, something remarkable starts to happen. You don't have to try so hard anymore. The principles that once felt like a foreign language are starting to become your native tongue. You encounter a setback at work, and your first thought isn't, this is a disaster, but, okay, what part of this can I control? What's the virtuous way to handle this? It's no longer a conscious, deliberate effort. It's becoming your default setting. An insult from a colleague doesn't sting like it used to, because you've internalized that their opinion is external to you and has no power over your inner state unless you grant it. You start to notice a growing sense of calm, a space between an event and your reaction to it. In that space, you find freedom. This is the third stage, internalization. The Stoic mindset is becoming a part of who you are. As you continue on this path, you reach a state that the ancient Stoics called apatheia. Now, this word is often misunderstood today as apathy, meaning you don't care about anything. But that's not it at all. Apatheia means tranquility, or emotional neutrality. It's not about feeling nothing. It's about not being disturbed by irrational, destructive emotions like rage, terror, or despair. You still feel joy, love, and sadness, but they don't throw you off balance. You can experience a deep loss and grieve, but you won't be destroyed by it, because you understand the nature of life and loss. You can achieve a great success and feel happiness, but you won't be inflated by ego, because you know that external achievements are fleeting. You've found your inner citadel, a fortress of peace within your mind that no external event can breach. This is the fourth stage, tranquility. It's a profound sense of well-being that is undependent on whether things are going your way. From this place of inner peace, something beautiful emerges. When you are no longer a slave to your own knee-jerk reactions and fears, you become free to truly connect with others and with the world. This is where the Stoic virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance truly shine. Because you're not constantly worried about your own ego or protecting your own comfort, you can act with real courage. You can speak up for what's right, even when it's difficult, because you understand that all people are part of a single human family. You can act with genuine compassion and justice. You see others' flaws not as personal attacks, but as a reflection of their own struggles and lack of wisdom. You help them. Not out of a sense of superiority, but out of a sense of shared humanity. Your actions become less about what's in it for me, and more about what is the right thing to do. This is the final and most beautiful stage of the journey. Virtuous action. You are not just at peace. You are a force for good in the world. You live with purpose, guided by your inner compass. This entire journey from intellectual curiosity to a life of serene, virtuous action is not a quick fix. It's a lifelong practice. There will be days when you stumble, when old habits resurface, but that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and taking the next right step, guided by these ancient principles that are more relevant today than ever before. It's about building a life of resilience, purpose, and profound, unshakable peace. So where are you on this journey? The most important thing to remember is that it doesn't matter where you start. All that matters is that you begin. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into practical philosophy. See you in the next one.